So hi everybody, welcome to the All About Lavender cooking class. I'm Stephanie Jordan. I'm the local food program manager at Sustainable Solano. And this class and this series is part of our specialty crop cooking class series. And the point of it is to raise awareness of specialty crops that are being grown by our farmers in Solano County. I'm going to be doing 2 recipes today, and they're both using different parts of the lavender plant. I'm going to be doing a roasted beet salad with a honey-lavender dressing, and then we're going to do some really quick and easy lavender-lemonade ice pops, which is great for summer. Okay, so back to the beet salad. So the salad ingredients are fairly straightforward. It's, some beets and some pecans and some goat cheese, and then what we're doing with the lavender is we're putting the lavender into the dressing, and we're using the leaves of the lavender, which I will show in a minute. And we're gonna cook up some shallots and put the leaves in and do a little saute before we blend it all up in a blender with some oil. So that's the salad. And then Allison will probably show the ice pop recipe, which is also up there. Maybe, maybe not. This was super duper simple. For this one, we're using dried lavender flowers. So we're using another part of the plant, and I have that kind of in the works on my range top behind me, and it's kind of infusing a sugar syrup. So we'll talk about that when we get to that recipe. All right, thank you, Allison. Okay, so I'm just gonna talk really loud. So let's do the beet salad first. And what I did around 2 o'clock today was I roasted these little beets. I have a combination of red beets and yellow beets in here. Since I was doing a bunch of them, I went ahead and put them all in a pan and I lined it with foil because the beet juice can be kind of a real stickler for cleanup. Alternatively, you could just individually wrap a beet in tin foil and then put it on a sheet pan and put it in the oven. But since I was doing a lot, I'm doing it like this. So there they are. And the next thing to look at here is the dressing. So here are the lavender leaves, and I have a small lavender plant in my yard, so I just pulled these out. Visually, they look a little bit like a rosemary plant. They're kind of long and straight. So this is what we're going to use in our dressing. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through the dressing ingredients, and we'll get that ready to go, and then we'll come back and assemble the set. Okay? So the first thing I need to do is cut up some shallots. So here are my shallots. They're they look like big giant pink garlic bulbs. These are really large. I may not need both of them. I think I'm just going to do 1.5 of these. So I'm going to cut it up very similarly to how I would cut up an onion. So I have the top off. Then I'm going to go straight through. And I'm going to peel off the outside layer. After I've cut through, I can grab that outside layer easily. Okay, so there's my first one. Here's my second half. Okay, let me grab a towel here. Okay, so then I'm just going to cut through this 3 different ways. Actually, for this recipe, sorry, I'm not going to do a dice. I'm just going to do slices. So we're just going to go straight through. Okay, get rid of the end. And we're aiming for about 3/4 to 1 cup of sliced shallots. So this is a little bit different than a vinaigrette. Typically, a vinaigrette is like about 1/3 parts vinegar of some sort, and then the rest of oil. Okay, so we might not need the second one. That is 3/4 right there. I'll do a little bit extra. Shallots make me cry really bad. So hopefully I won't start crying. I've got a little scrap bucket over here on the side if you're wondering what I'm doing over here with the peelings. Okay. There's my extra half. Put that over there. We did a knife skills class a couple months ago, and I kind of walked through onions and things like that. And so we'll probably do another one of those later in the summer. We're going to do them quarterly, just working with different seasonal ingredients that we have. Okay, so there's my shallots ready to go. And we're going to saute those with some oil. I'm going to just start using some olive oil. I've got some from Soul Food Farm here. This is just olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. Okay, so I'm going to let my pan heat up here. And while we're waiting for this to heat up, I'm just going to chop up the lavender leaves. And then also what's going to go in here is some honey. So I'll measure that out. This is some honey I got through my CSA from Terra Firma. All right, but first our lavender leaves, and we just need about a teaspoon. The thing about lavender is that a little bit goes a long way. So we don't necessarily need too much. I'm just keeping my little bunch all together, and I'm just chopping straight down so that I have what I need. A couple other little stragglers here. All right. Put my lavender in here. Shallots, lavender, and then we'll do the honey in a minute. Okay, so step one is to get our shallots cooking. And I want them to get softened and maybe just starting to turn a little bit golden. Get those in there. Okay, it's starting to sizzle. This might get a little bit loud, which is not going to help our sound issue, but we'll do our best here. Okay, then what will go in next will be my lavender and then some honey. And I'm just going to make like a little syrup out of all of this. And then we're going to put it into a blender with some champagne vinegar and some mustard and some neutral oil. So what I'm using today is an avocado oil. You could use safflower or grapeseed, something that just doesn't have a really strong flavor, because I want to try to have the lavender flavor come out in the dressing. Okay, so that's starting to saute. I'm going to do about a third of a cup of honey, which seems like a lot. This is kind of sweet, but the aromatics with the shallots are going to kind of offset it a bit. Okay, so while we're waiting for the shallots to happen here and get soft, I'll show you the beets that I roasted and kind of how to deal with those once they come out of the oven. Looks good. I'm going to add just a little bit more olive oil to this pan here. Really, you kind of need oil. We need the heat to kind of activate all of these different flavors, the shallots and the lavender. A little bit more oil. Okay. Okay, so here are my beets that were finished. So I went ahead and peeled these, but I just wanted to show you. After I take them out of the oven, I take them out of that pan. You need to let them cool down for a little bit. And then once they've steamed and cooked, the peel should just kind of come right off. Sometimes it helps to put this in a bowl of water or underneath a little stream of water. This is my yellow beet. I didn't even really know what color it was until I started peeling it. So there's, and it just slips right off. So here's my peeling, which we can get rid of. And I'm ready to go. So I'm just going to cut these into some wedges. And I'm just going to set them aside. They're really pretty once they're cooked. It's kind of fun to put these together because the juice from the red beets kind of goes on to the yellow beets, and you have a multicolored, very brightly colored salad, which is really pretty. Okay, so my shallots are starting to brown a little bit. And so now I'm going to add my lavender leaves. And at first, when you see the lavender, they look a little bit grayish. And so what I'm looking for when I put in the pan is I want to see them turn kind of a bright green color. And I'm also going to start to smell it. Okay, my shallots are getting kind of limp. I can kind of show here. So they're kind of falling apart and, you know, breaking apart from their little concentric circles. Okay, and now in goes the honey. All right. Shallots. Yes. Okay. So I want to just add my honey briefly so that it can warm up and get syrupy, because then it'll mix better with the other ingredients in the blender. Okay, so what I have here is just kind of a big bubbly syrupy thing with the shallots and the honey and the lavender. So it kind of oozes across the pan there. Okay, and I can start to smell all of this, which is great. So I'm going to turn that off for right now and just let it sit there. And then meanwhile, I'm going to put the other ingredients into my blender jar. So I have a couple tablespoons of champagne vinegar, 2 tablespoons. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of Dijon mustard. And the good thing about putting mustard into dressings like this is that the mustard will help it emulsify, which means it's going to help bind together the oil-based ingredients and the water-based ingredients. So that's what we're doing here. And let's see, I also need like a teaspoon of that. There. Okay, so that's in. Okay, now I'm just going to measure out my, there's the lid, my neutral oil that I'm going to add. And so we need about a cup-ish. I'm going to start with about 3/4 and see how it goes. All right, the lid's somewhere down there. I'll find it later. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to unplug and move my equipment around a little bit here. Let's see, I don't want to unplug the laptop. I'm going to unplug the, there we go, the burner. All right. So this whole mixture is going to go in here. Make sure I get all of it out of the pan. There we go. And I'm going to give this just a quick spin to mix it, to get the shallots chopped up, and then I'm going to drizzle in the oil really slowly. Okay, so that's chopped up a little bit. I'm just going to kind of go down on the sides and get the herbs and everything back down where it belongs. I'm also going to add a little bit of salt. A little pinch of salt in there. Okay, now, so the blender lid, has this hole in it. So I'm gonna take the top off after I mix up a little bit more. And then I'm just gonna drizzle in the oil and let it emulsify and do its thing. Okie doke, that is that. And what I now have is a relatively thick looking dressing. Unlike a vinaigrette, this is going to be a little thicker. I'm going to taste it and just see how it tastes, if it needs more salt or anything. Grab my little tasting spoon up here. The flavor's good. I'm going to add a little bit of water just to kind of thin it back down a tad. So I'm going to grab, probably won't need more than about a tablespoon or so, just so it coats the leaves nicely when we dress it. Okay, and at this point you have an option. You could add a couple tablespoons of heavy whipping cream if you want, just to kind of give it a little more richness. So it's up to you. I'm gonna skip that for right now, although I do have some cream. So, all right, so here's our dressing. I'm just gonna set that aside, and then we will put our salad together. Get rid of the blender here. Laid out ready. Okay, so my salad greens for today are a red leaf lettuce that I got in my Eat Well box today. So they're nice and colorful. We've got some green and purplish colors here. So for those of you that have been on my classes in the past and we've done salads, you know my favorite way to do this, which is you swash around the leaves in a great big giant bowl of water. And the dirt and sediment will sink to the bottom, and then the leaves will float on the top, and then you skim the leaves off and put them in the salad spinner. And then here we go. All right. Now for this particular salad, I'm gonna do the dressing part. Not the dressing, but I'm going to assemble it kind of in two different parts. So first I'm going to put my leaves in here. And I'm going to add a little bit of the dressing to the leaves and toss it around. And then I'll put that on the plate. And then I'm going to put my beets in. So step one. Now, ideally, we would let this cool down a little bit. It's not super hot, but you want to have this cooled down a little bit more before we put it on. You don't want to put hot dressing on. It's a little cooler than it was before, but just keep that in mind. Okay, let me grab a, let's see, let me grab these things. You kind of want to gently toss. Another good way to taste your dressing is after you've finished it, just take a leaf, dip it in, shake it off, and try it this way. Because then you really have a sense of, what it's going to taste like on your salad, as opposed to taking a spoon like I did earlier. All right, so there are my leaves. It's going to look like a large salad. A lunch salad. Put my extras over here. Okay, and next I'm going to toss the dressing with my beets. So here are my roasted yellow and red beets. Put a little bit of this in there with them. Give them a little toss, a little stir. All right, I have more beets than what I really need here, so I'm just gonna kind of compose this as if I'm plating it up for a little dinner party or something. Okay. All right, next is some pecans and some goat cheese. I'm just going to sprinkle some toasted pecans on top. If you don't have pecans, walnuts would work. I think pistachios would be a good option for this. You know, even almonds, but I think the walnuts and the pistachios would be tasty. And last but not least, some goat cheese. And then there's another option. If you ever come across some of those little candy striped beets, those would be really pretty shaved raw and just put on top like a garnish. So, you know, you can definitely do raw beets on salads too. There's a little bit of goat cheese. Goat cheese and beets go really well. And beets are kind of have that nice kind of sweet flavor, which complements the lavender really well too. All right. Then I usually like to put a little bit of pepper on top of the goat cheese after it's on there, just to give it a little bit of texture and flavor. Okay, I'll come around here and show you the salad. Oh, there it is, nice and colorful. All right, so that is our beet salad using the lavender leaves. And so our other recipe is very simple. So here's what I had on the stove earlier before class started. This is a simple syrup, which is equal parts sugar and water. And then there's 2 teaspoons of the lavender flowers. These are dried lavender flowers or little buds. So I know you can't really see these, but they're teeny, teeny, tiny little things, and they're very fragrant. And so the lavender has just been in here like an infusion. And so all we're going to do is mix our syrup with lavender with some additional water and some lemon juice, and then we'll just pour it into our ice pop molds. So it's super, super simple. But I just wanted to get that done because I knew we might be a little short on time. So there's my ice pops ready to go, and I'm just going to grab another bowl. Grab a bigger one here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to strain the syrup. To get the lavender flowers out. Okay, so that's that. Then I'm just going to add the remaining part of my water, which is another 2/3 of a cup of water. So let me grab my. Okay, so here's my extra water going into there. And then last but not least, we will add in our lemon juice. I happen to have a very nice Meyer lemon tree in my backyard. So I will juice these. They're typically pretty juicy this time of year. And I need about 2/3 of a cup of the lemon juice. All right, a couple more. This would be a great activity for kids if you've got bored children at home during the summer. Speaking of which, I think this might be a good time to have Rose come online and talk about the Lavender U-Pick, also a really great family event. Okay, there's my lemon juice. And mix that together with the sugar syrup. Give that a little stir, and then I'm just going to load it into my molds. So while I'm doing this, let's feel free to unmute yourself, Rose, and if anybody has questions about, you know, specific different kinds of lavender plants, I think Rose is going to chat a little bit about that. But go ahead and tell us about the U-Pick and what's going on at Morningsun Herb Farm, Rose.
So sure, I can talk a little bit about what we're doing, and it might actually hopefully answer some of the questions on the chat that I see coming in. Everyone can hear me? Okay, I hope. Yeah. Okay. Good. So I'm Rose from Morningsun Herb Farm, and I'm out on Pleasance Valley Road in Vacaville. We're having more of a virtual experience this year in the lavender field, but this weekend through next Wednesday, we're doing Lavender U-Pick. So the nice thing is when you come out to the Lavender U-Pick, it's actually at Soul Food Farm, which is 6046 Pleasance Valley Road. We are business partners together on this lavender venture. And we have different rows of different lavenders. Some of them are better for certain kinds of culinary. So when you come out, you can pick lavender for wreath making, you can pick lavender for culinary. There's lots of different purposes. I've actually cut a few different kinds of lavender. So I have this piece of paper that hopefully when I show the lavender, it'll maybe show up a little bit better than over the front of my face. So I see there's lots of questions about what do you mean by lavender buds or lavender flowers. So hopefully that's kind of come into focus a little bit. This is my workhorse lavender. This is an English lavender called Lavandula angustifolia hidcote blue. And this is one we use for all kinds of cooking. And so I probably won't be able to do this too easily, but the little lavender flowers, I actually harvested this yesterday because we did a lavender ice cream. So the little lavender flowers are kind of drying on here now. You see there's not much in the way of actual flower. So what we call, you see the flowers are kind of dried. Now the flower buds are actually the part of the flower that's stuck on at the end. It's actually the calyx. It's that little nubby part. It's that little nubby part that's actually stuck onto the stem. So the little flower part, that actually dries and falls out, the petal. And so what's left, that little nub, that's the part with the flavor that when people talk about buds, that's what they're talking about. And so the closest thing to compare it to is it's like a rose hip. So this is where the seed would form. This is basically the ovary, but you know, lavender ovaries sound terrible for cooking, but lavender flower bud sounds delicious for cooking. So that's how it got that name. That's where most of the essential oil is, whether you're distilling it in oil or distilling it for oil or putting it in oil or vinegar or using it for cooking. The nice thing is you can use the leaves like Steph was showing in the vinaigrette. It's a little bit calmer flavor. This English lavender, the reason I say it's the workhorse is that the English lavenders tend to have the best floral flavor. So we found this out the hard way. We teach a class every year called A Day of Lavender. So I'll show that. Actually, I'm going to show like the whole batch again. We teach a class called A Day of Lavender, and I usually use this one, Hidcote Blue, when we make a jelly. And instead, I used another popular variety that we grow a lot of. This one's called Provence. So I said, oh, Provence. Well, let's try Provence instead. And Provence is not a true English lavender. It's called a lavandin. And so it's an English lavender hybrid. And the other parent has a lot of camphor in it. So when we made the jelly, those light lavender flower buds, instead of making a beautiful pink jelly, which is what the English lavender does for you, it made a rather uninteresting, less than uninteresting, gray jelly, which turns out gray is everyone's least favorite food color. And it tasted like a bar of soap that you might wash your mouth out with after you've been cussing. It was terrible, terrible. So we really had it emphasized that it depends. You really want to choose your lavender wisely. So if I'm doing an Herbes de Provence blend, where it's for savory food and you're mixing it with marjoram and oregano and bay leaf and thyme, the lavandins, like this one here, which is the Provence lavender, you see how big the buds are on it. This is great for savory foods. It can hold that heavy, robust flavor. But if you're doing lemonade or jelly or ice cream, anything sweet, the English lavenders are much preferred for cooking. And you can actually eat the flower part. So I noticed someone saying, gosh, you know, harvesting those flowers, that's a lot of work. Like, let's see if I can get it on here. So there's the little, what we would call the flower. Those are the little petals. And so when they're fresh, you can eat those, and people will use those for garnishes, but you only have fresh flowers for a month or so. But they're milder flavors. So if you're trying to put something on top that looks really pretty, a bunch of the little flower petals during the season works really well. But the little buds are pretty strong. So you want to be careful even with the English lavenders. Most people, though, can eat a little bit of English lavender. And you know, you can eat it and it's fine. It's floral. It's nice and smooth in your mouth. I'm not even going to put the other one. I'm not going to even put the Provence in my mouth because I won't be able to finish the sentence. It's like eating a pine tree. So it is important to taste the flowers, and by the flowers, the flower bud or that little ovary section that's attached onto the stem. It's important to give that a try before you decide if that's the one you want to cook with. Any other questions offhand? Let's see. So the You Pick event goes through Wednesday, and all we ask, it's free to come out. But what you would want to do is, if possible, go to the Morningsun Farm website homepage and sign up to come out. We definitely have people who come out who have no intention of picking. They just want to walk the field because it's so beautiful. And so it's a good chance to come out. She has a beautiful farm out there, Soul Food Farm, and we have lots and lots of rows of gorgeous lavender all coming into bloom. So it's a really pretty time to come out. Also, tomorrow at 10 a.m., 10:30, we'll start the second weekend of our virtual open farm days because we're in a virtual world this year. So it's actually ended up being a really great experience because when you go there, what you're going to find is that there's like all of the farms, including farms that you don't normally get to see at all. You can actually go and see the farm, and you can actually take a tour and learn some real specifics. So this weekend is all about lavender. So you can learn to make lavender ice cream, which is what I did last night with Lisa. Or you can learn how to distill lavender. We actually have one grower that's going to be doing a distillation video. There's going to be videos about how to prune your plants, how to harvest them, how to dry the flowers properly so you can use them, and even some crafting classes. So I know this is a cooking class, but if anyone's ever interested in learning to make like a lavender wand, this is the time. We have a tutorial that'll show up tomorrow. You can make a beautiful lavender wand. This is a Victorian craft, and now it's very popular again because you can sit, well, before you could sit with groups of friends. Now you can sit virtually with groups of friends and make lavender wands, but you have to do it while the lavender is fresh. You can't use dried lavender. So it's a great time. A lot of people are coming out and harvesting the lavender now so they can sit down and learn how to make a wand online. So lots of possibilities with lavender, even though we can't get together as usual for a big lavender festival next year. But this year, what it's forced us to do is really concentrate on getting information out there that's going to be available to you year round.
Actually, Rose, I have a question. Once you've picked the fresh lavender, does it benefit by putting it into a glass of water? I was, as we were talking about herbs today, this was some parsley that I picked from my own garden, I would say on Sunday or Monday. And so I plopped it into a cup of water, just like, you know, fresh cut flowers would go. And as you can see, it's like doing great. It's fresh, it's, you know, not wilty at all. Whoops, it's falling out, but it's not wilty. So if I had fresh lavender, would this be a recommended way to store it for a little while, or is there a different alternative because it's a flower and not necessarily, you know, a leafy green?
Right. It would still, if you wanted to keep the lavender fresh, including maybe to have some of the little flower petals, I would definitely keep it in water. Or you could or if you just left it out of water, it would dry naturally. And of course, as it dries, the flower and the flavor intensifies. So, you know, as you lose the water, you know, you get more essential oil in the flower. So if you are going to keep it in water, though, the interesting thing about lavender is because it has so much essential oil in the flower and the stem, you know, you've got your flower in the water, you only try to put about this much water. So don't fill it up with a lot of water because it tends to get gooey right away and it cuts off the water flow because the essential oil drains downward and it cuts off the flow of water back up the stem. So just a little bit of water, and every day or so, cut a little bit off the end of the flower stem so that you keep water flow coming up into the flower. So unlike sunflowers or cosmos or zinnias, which don't have a lot of essential oil, this one, the essential oil drains down and clogs up the ability for the flowers to take up any more water. So likewise, that's why they tell you when you're drying lavender flowers, you hang them this way. First of all, it keeps the flowers straight. So if you want to craft with them, they'll stay nice and straight. But also the essential oil stays down in the flower, which is the flower buds, which is where you're going to be using it. So that's the other reason why they always tell you to hang it upside down and in shade, which seems to surprise people. But since it grows in full sun, why would you hang it in the shade? But once you cut it, you want to really preserve all the essential oil in the flower. And if you put it in full sun, the essential oil vaporizes. So while you're going, oh, it smells really pretty, the essential oil is actually leaving the plant. So in the shade, it dries more slowly and you'll lose less essential oil that way.
Any more questions out there? I have one comment while we're waiting. We've talked about, you know, fresh and dried. And so, you know, concerning the little lavender flowers, I believe the original recipe for the ice pops talks about having 2 tablespoons of fresh lavender blossoms. So I did not have fresh, but I did have the dried. So what you typically want to do is use about 1/3 of the amount of fresh. So there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. So I originally would have had 6 teaspoons of the fresh lavender blossoms. For these ice pops today, since I had dried, I just used 2 teaspoons, so 1/3 of my original amount when it comes to the culinary cooking part of the lavender.
Well, if anyone's interested in coming out to the U-Pick, it's definitely a good time, you know, between now and Wednesday while the field is looking beautiful, and you can really get a lot of different kinds of lavender flavors and fragrances right now.